You guys should be able to see me. Great. So today we have with us Cathy Sousa, and she's going to be talking to you today about mental health in the workplace. She is a professional counselor for 20 years and has been with Benedict Associates for 2 years. She has a master's degree in counseling and is currently completing a degree in child and adolescent therapy. Cathy is a lifelong learner and has attended numerous local and overseas conferences, professional seminars, and workshops to develop herself and offer an in-depth array of services to enhance and improve the lives of others. Cathy has worked in private, government, and charitable organizations and is a member of the Bermuda Counselors Association, the American Mental Health Counselors Association, the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, and the Employee Assistance Association of America. She is a board member of the Bermuda Counselors Association and the Bermuda Mental Health Foundation, and is co-founder of depression and bipolar support group called Living Well Together. Cathy is a passionate advocate for human rights generally, and has a special interest in mental health and disability. She's committed to promoting just and equitable society that allows each and every person the opportunity to pursue their dreams. So once again, we would love for you guys to turn your attention to Ms. Sousa, who has a very powerful presentation. And again, you are able to ask questions by raising your hand. Over to you, Cathy.
Sorry, hold on. Hi. I am having a little problem here. Sorry. My slides. Okay. Here we go. Sorry about that. So welcome today. Thank you, Jody, for the introduction. I appreciate that very much. We're here to talk about mental health awareness, and particularly in the workplace. Awareness is, about busting some of those myths and improving information about mental health and mental illness in the workplace today. So today is World Mental Health Day, and you should know that the overall objective of World Mental Health Day is to raise awareness of mental health issues and to mobilize efforts in support of better mental health. It's the World Health Organization who selected mental health in the workplace to highlight this year. So I want to start out by saying that there is no reason not to view mental illness in the same way that we view physical illness. It's a medical condition that impacts a person's life. The difference is that mental health problems specifically affect thinking, feeling, mood, and of course, as a result, the ability to relate well to others. We know that genetics, brain structure, environment, and lifestyle can all impact mental health. And it isn't about getting over it through willpower. I want to let you know some of the common signs and symptoms of mental health, so that mental health problems, so that we can be more in tune with ourselves and what we're experiencing. And also we can be helpful to others, whether it's our employees, our coworkers, families. If we recognize some of these symptoms, it then opens up a conversation, right? So one of the things that most people are aware of is depression. And depression in a clinical sense isn't just feeling sad because something bad happened, but it is really feeling sad, withdrawn, and unmotivated for more than, solidly for more than 2 weeks. And, if that is the case, then there's an indication that some support might be necessary. Substance use. That's a hard one in Bermuda because there's a lot of alcohol consumption, and what is deemed excessive is often variable, right? So we can narrow down that definition to be excessive alcohol use or drug use, could be over-the-counter drugs, right, that impair or affect your functioning. So that would be your family relationships and work, like getting to work late, having to leave early so that you can go drink, that kind of thing. Important things like serious changes in behavior, personality, or sleep, those are red flags, thinking about making plans to harm oneself or kill oneself. Out of control, risky behaviors. Again, a red flag, right? Not a diagnosis, but like, what's that about? You might want to do some investigating in that if that's you, or have a conversation if that's someone else. Fear, sudden overwhelming fear for no reason. Now that's the important issue. It's not like you're being threatened and you're afraid, but for no, when they say no reason, it's like for no reason that is life-threatening. So you're having a reaction that implies you're engaged in a life-threatening situation. So it could be, racing heart, fast breathing. Generally, we call that a panic attack. And definitely intervention is available and should be sought out. Intense worries, that's more like the anxiety spectrum. We're not talking about anxiety because you have to give a presentation like today. We're not talking about anxiety because you're worried about something happening in particular. We're talking about, again, it's like out of the ordinary worries that impair your ability to function. Significant weight loss or gains, like any changes in weight that involve extreme behaviors like throwing up, using laxatives, not eating. Intervention would be really important in that case. And mood swings, severe mood swings, not just a good day or a bad day, but extreme highs, extreme lows to the extent that it's causing you problems. Okay, so those are just some of the things that might indicate that intervention might be helpful. So if you have a mental health condition, you need to know that you're not alone. 1 in 5 U.S. adults, and to be honest, those stats tend to go across the board in other countries. And sometimes it's 1 in 4. So it's like 20 to 25% of adults experience some form of mental illness each year. 1 in 17 has a more serious condition such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or long-term recurring major depression. At any given time, 450 million people are suffering from some form of mental or brain disorder. Some of those include 121 million people worldwide suffering from depression, 70 million from alcohol-related problems, 24 million from schizophrenia. Between 10 and 20 million people around the world have attempted suicide, with an estimated 815,000 completed suicides each year. I want to go back and just touch on the schizophrenia thing, because it's a common misconception that schizophrenia is the same as multiple personalities, and those are 2 entirely different diagnoses. So very often people say schizophrenia of schizo and talk about, having 2 personalities. That's not it. Schizophrenia involves thoughts and behaviors that are out of touch with reality. That's schizophrenia. Multiple personality is a whole different situation. Okay? The World Health Organization predicts that depression will be the world's most common illness by 2030, and suggests that the global burden of the condition will be greater than for other illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. That's a pretty incredible prediction. And the fact is that depression is increasing in frequency in the population generally. So what does that have to do with work? Well, work is a key factor in supporting and protecting mental health. We know that for people generally, work has a significant role in our lives, providing structure, providing a sense of productivity, and a sense of purpose sometimes. Sometimes it even goes to the extent of providing an identity. Some people identify with their work role. So it's really, really important. And, you know, the structure of it and everything really, really guides our lives and helps, you know, protect us with in mental health, with mental situations. So work is even more important for people who are experiencing mental health problems. People with mental health problems want to be at work. They want to be productive, and they value the part that work plays in their lives. Well, like the rest of us, I guess, right? The relationship between work and mental health, again, the workplace can contribute positively to a person's mental health. So that's what I just described in terms of the sense of productivity and meaning and those kinds of things. A workplace can exacerbate an existing problem. So the workplace environment can make a mental health situation worse. And the workplace can contribute to the development of a mental health problem. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and stress are common. The failure to prevent, recognize, and respond to mental health problems in the workplace has an impact on employers, employees, and their families, and the community generally. There's increasing evidence that both the content and the context of work can play a role in the development of mental health problems in the workplace. So, yeah, it can be the actual work that a person is doing. It can be the environment, the relationship with superiors, relationships with coworkers. We're very familiar nowadays with the concept of bullying in the workplace. It occurs just the same way that it occurs on the playground. Bullies have just grown up. And if employers don't take action to monitor and intervene in those things, there can be, you know, quite serious repercussions. So poor mental health is one of the biggest issues in the workplace today, causing over 70 million working days to be lost each year. This includes everything from the most commonly experienced symptoms of stress and anxiety, right through to the more complex mental health conditions like depression, bipolar disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder. As well as having a huge impact on individual employees, poor mental health has severe repercussions for employers, including increased staff turnover, absence due to debilitating depression, burnout and exhaustion, and decreased motivation and lost productivity. So we're talking about issues that are not addressed in the workplace, have those repercussions, right? So a significant thing happened last year. In 2016, the Bermuda Human Rights Act was amended, and when it was originally put together in 1981, the mental health disabilities was not a protected category. So physical disabilities was there and covered, but not mental health. So now that they've extended it to protect the rights of people with mental disabilities, it means that it's illegal if, due to mental health disability, a person is treated less favorably than he would treat other persons. If a person refuses or deliberately omits to enter into any contract or arrangement with a person on the same terms and circumstances as they would with other people, and if they're just deliberately treated differently. So it's really important to recognize that one cannot enter into an agreement and modify it because that person has a disability. That would be discrimination, okay? Oh, right, so included also in the Mental Health Act, and if you do access it, it's Schedule 1 that goes into what modifications need to be provided, but Schedule 1 goes into unreasonable hardship, because the Act says that a person shall not be considered disqualified for an employment by reason of his disability if it's possible for the employer or prospective employer to modify the circumstances of the employment so as to eliminate the effects of this disabled person's disability in relation to that employment without causing unreasonable hardship to the employer or prospective employer. So if a person has a mental health disability, if they're competent to do the job, but they need some adjustments in how it's done, then the employer should be in a position to provide those. However, if it causes unreasonable hardship to the employer, they can be exempt from doing that. So know about and perhaps examine. So organizations have a responsibility to support employees with mental health conditions in either continuing or returning to work. So if you think about it, in the same way that you would support someone with a condition, that's what you want to do with a mental health condition. So modifications, let's say if someone broke their leg, you might allow them to work from home, work remotely, something like that. You might allow them to modify their hours. You might modify the job description a little bit to accommodate what's going on with them. And so for a mental health condition, it's exactly the same way. If someone has been out sick for a mental health issue, then the conversation needs to take place about, how can you incorporate them back into the workplace? Obviously, without causing them to not be able to fulfill the requirements of the job. So it's not about employers having to accept that a person's not completing the work. It's about how can they complete the work. You want the job done. How can they do it given that they have this condition that they're recuperating from? Okay. And honestly, if you think about it in terms of wrapping your head around it, the workplace, like I said, in addressing negative workplace dynamics, supporting people generally, but also in particular people with mental health problems, not to ignore problematic, and providing supportive and confidential communication so that the employees can feel that they can to be able to go to them and talk about what's going on with them and what their needs are. So in summary, why should employers take action? Well, to avoid the detrimental impact poor mental health has on both employees and businesses, employers should take action then to prevent mental health issues occurring, and then by providing support when they do. The reward for getting this right, a happier, healthier workforce, and more successful, high-performing business. Why employers or coworkers may be reluctant to intervene. So there's something going on with an employee. You notice that they're withdrawn, they're maybe not interacting. There's something that you notice that is not quite right. And it's not, again, like I said, not a bad day. It's about something that extends over a period of usually more than 2 weeks. And yes, concern. You're like, something's wrong, something's going on. And people generally are concerned about invading people's privacy. When it has to do with mental health problems, there's this even more pervasive concern about a person's privacy because of the stigma attached to a mental illness. So people are like, I don't want to go talk to that person because maybe they're ashamed of whatever it is they're experiencing. So that's a big problem. People often believe that it's not their place to say anything, and very often help. So why don't people themselves speak up when they need support? Well, and internalized stigma. Internalized stigma is that when you believe yourself about stigma. So you believe it just as much as anybody who says it. And we can believe negative things about ourselves because we've internalized the concepts of shame around mental health problems. Sometimes for an employee, like, they have a perception that reaching out for help is not really businesslike. It's not something you want to do in the workplace. They may have a lack of understanding about mental health themselves, and they worry about the potential negative impact on work status. So if they did reach out for support, they would worry that it might affect their job, it might affect a promotion, it might affect the tasks that they're given, because people will, or employers might look at them differently. So in addition to the obvious suffering caused by mental health problems, there's a hidden burden of stigma, discrimination, and human rights violations. Many people have misconceptions about mental health problems. For example, they may believe that there's no treatment available for mental health problems. Well, that in itself is going to be a huge problem. If you know that someone has a mental health condition and you don't believe that it can be remedied, well, you obviously believe that's their level of functioning and that's how it's going to stay. Well, of course, that's not true, right? There's treatments available and people can and do return to their normal level of functioning. People believe that mental health problems are caused by personal weakness. That really is a relic from the past when there was no information, there wasn't nothing called neuroscience, no information about the brain. And so things were attributed to character, right? A weakness in character. You just can't deal with life. So you get this mental health problem. Of course, we know that's not true. And those are the kind of myths that we need to bust. People with mental health disorders are incapable of making decisions for themselves and running their own lives. Again, big myth. Just like if you injure yourself physically, there may be something that you aren't able to do in the same way that you did it before until the injury heals. That's true. But it doesn't affect your ability overall, your whole entire life, right? And so that belief really holds people back, both, the employer, the employee, everybody really is penalized by that kind of view. So the stigmatizing attitudes like those can result in discrimination in the workplace, such that there's an unfair denial of employment opportunities. And I touched on that before, whereas, let's say someone's suffering from depression at this moment. Well, we know that depression is a treatable illness. And that when you receive treatment, you do go back to your typical level of functioning. However, if employers have these stigmatizing views, they may look at the person that has had depression and say, well, we really can't give them additional tasks. We can't give them a promotion because they can't cope, which ties back to that personal weakness thing, right? Well, no, it's not about them not coping. It's about them having a treatable illness that if it's treated appropriately, they can be functioning like everybody else. So the other thing about stigma is what we say matters. And, we can, without meaning to, send judgmental, critical, or insensitive messages about mental health issues. Using mental health terms carelessly, like, you're so bipolar when joking around with a colleague, or he's so OCD when complaining about the demands of your boss, or, she's just schizo when, you're talking about someone on your team, right? Those things add to the stigma, right? Because, these are illnesses, and throwing those labels around indiscriminately diminishes the validity of those kind of conditions. So offhand comments just add to the stigma that many people living with a mental health condition are already experiencing. So if you're experiencing a mental health problem at work, speak to your employer or your HR representative and find out what the policies are on mental health. Find out if you have access to an employee assistance program, what disability and return to work options are available if you need medical leave, and what other resources might be available to you. Sometimes there are benefits or accommodations in terms of adjustments in work that could be of assistance to you. So you need to ask, check it out, find out what's available so that you can make the next decision. So 5 ways to support a colleague. If you notice concerning symptoms in an employee or a coworker, find a place that you can talk privately. Be non-intrusive and compassionate. Ask them straight up, are you okay? Listen carefully to their response and then encourage them to connect with appropriate resources. And those resources might be your EAP, it might be your GP, your doctor. Those are probably the most appropriate places to start. And let me talk about the things to avoid. Avoid diagnosing or trying to fix them. So you say, you've got anxiety. Well, I know people who have taken this, and that's really not helpful. Suggesting the problem will resolve itself on its own, like, oh, well, don't worry about it. It'll go away. You just need to do this or that. And then suggesting, like I said, specific treatment options. Those treatment options should come from either a mental health practitioner or other medical practitioner, like a doctor. And then assuming that the person hasn't tried already and they haven't tried hard enough to feel better or to deal with the issue. Most times people have really thought a lot and probably feeling like they're hitting a brick wall. So having someone to open up that conversation is often really helpful in getting people to take that action that they need in order to get the treatment to feel better. So what else can employers do? Well, we talked about this a bit, creating a culture of trust and communication to support an emotionally healthy environment. Communicate organizational values that include respect, civility, and a general culture of well-being to encourage empathic behaviors by employees. So, that kind of ganging up, workplace bullying, arguments, not speaking, intervene. And, EAPs can help with that, or you may have someone internally that can help with that, but it's really not healthy for your employees to continue in a high conflict environment or, an environment that's not supportive. Create a culture of openness and awareness by encouraging people to talk about mental health. Promote the use of non-stigmatizing language when talking about mental health. So not using slang words, and again, not throwing things around lightly, right? Support both management and staff by having an employee assistance program. One of the most effective things an organization can do is to have an employee assistance program. Why? Because EAPs bridge that gap between the world of work and the world of healthcare. In the workplace, people are specialized in the work that they do. So one wouldn't expect them to be able to treat or make decisions about someone's mental health, right? The EAP can do that. The EAPs utilize a multidisciplinary approach to provide an integrated and informed service. So the background of EAP practitioners is in organizational psychology, human resources, and substance abuse and other mental health concerns. So what does the employee assistance program actually do? Well, like I said, supporting both employer and employee. It supports the employer because they can use the EAP service to obtain coaching and advice on how to deal with their concerns about an employee. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know the right thing. If you have an EAP service, you can consult them and feel better about the decision of the next step you're going to take. The employee can receive direct services either by contacting their EAP on their own or via their manager or HR department. EAP will assist the employee by providing counseling and or referring them, with their consent, to other more specialized services in the community. The EAP can also, with your consent, coordinate services and liaise with your employer on your behalf. Oftentimes, experiencing a mental health problem, there's not a lot of resilience to be communicating with the employer and figuring things out on your own. To have the support of an EAP counselor can be invaluable and valuable to the employer, in that they can feel like they're getting, the information clearly, and also getting advice on how that's going to play out or move forward at work. So some of the references and resources. So for this presentation, a lot of the material came directly from the World Health Organization. They have on their website a page specifically on workplace mental health. mentalhealthuk.org, the Mental Health Foundation in the United Kingdom, is also an excellent resource, and the National Alliance on Illness, phenomenal amount of information. I think even some to find out about functioning of your functioning. And then if you want more information about the Human Rights Act, because that's important in knowing how to support people too, or knowing the requirements to support people, you could go to bermudalaws.com.bm and read the act itself, or you can shortcut that and go directly to the Human Rights Commission. The Bermuda Mental Health Foundation is available as a resource, and our organization, Benedict Associates, and there's obviously lots of others, but for this presentation, those were the main ones. And finally, if you have further questions or you'd like a copy of this presentation, you can email me at Cathy Sousa at logic.bm. If you want more information about Benedict Associates and our services, we have a EAP service. We also do private counseling, coaching, and organizational services. So you can contact Helen Orchard at logic.bm, and we also have our website down here listed as benedict.bm. And for more information about the Human Rights Act, the Human Rights Commission Education Officer, Sarah Clifford, will be really more than happy to communicate with you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your participation. I hope you learned something. I hope we managed to bust a couple of myths. And feel free to contact us. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Awesome. I believe that you guys can now see me back here. First of all, I wanted to be able to give you some background information about the foundation. Unfortunately, that video did not play, but I want to still give you the background, give you the information, and I'll send that video shortly. We're also going to upload the presentation to the website. So really quickly, the foundation was founded in 1994 as a nonprofit, all-volunteer private enterprise effort. The foundation has never sought out or received any funds from Bermuda government, and it works in partnership with the Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute's outreach staff. We are privately funded, and we now have 3 properties that we have acquired in order to assist those that need adequate housing in Bermuda. We recently opened that 3rd property in the parish of Somerset, so that was very exciting over the summer. The overall mission of the Bermuda Mental Health Foundation is to promote the preservation of mental health services in Bermuda and to provide resources that will assist in relieving and rehabilitating persons that suffer with mental disorders. On behalf of the foundation, we would like to thank Ms. Sousa and Benedict Associates for preparing a presentation on mental health in the workplace and touching on the new additions to the Human Rights Act. The foundation over the past several years has kind of entered into a bit of a rejuvenation objectives, and we've hosted school tours throughout Bermuda to educate our youth on mental illness. We take the stand that the way to combat stigma is to talk about it, and we wanted to make sure that we get into the schools. We're actually in the process of arranging another school tour. We've done panel discussions, lecture events, and we've touched on topics such as suicide, depression, stigma, and the like, and many more other topics. We've worked with, in conjunction with the Human Rights Commission and the government, to contribute to the additions of the Mental Health Act, the Human Rights Act, and we provide resources and the like to the community as well. Our website is www.bmhf.bm, where you can find all of this information and more. We do hope you enjoyed, and more importantly, learned something that can help you and your organization become a more mentally healthy place to work. And we would also like to thank the Bermuda Hospital Board, as well as Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute. And as a quick wrap up, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, again, that it's Mental Health Week. Wednesday, tomorrow, there are things going on as far as on the radio station. There's physical events you can attend, and I'm going to send the full schedule in an email to you guys right now, so you can continue this week with getting involved and being a part of Mental Health Week. We appreciate your time, and thank you so much. And if you do have any questions, we will keep this open. You're welcome to raise your hand or unmute yourself at this time and ask some questions to Ms. Sousa or myself. Or even have an open debate. We have a little time, so I'm going to just stop my screen, and then you guys are welcome to ask any questions.